I'm recording,
Okay.
but I'm not zoomed in on the screen yet. I will do now. See in world. Oh, and you turned it. Ah, there it is. There we go. I'm full screen now.
Okay.
Although all I
Let me
see is
just.
your desktop.
Can anybody confirm the stream has started before I can? No, I've got it. We're good. We're good to go.
Yeah, remember guys, I actually can't see anything now. I can't see chat or anything. So,
And I can't see because of the helmet I've got on.
yeah. So you're going to have to
Okay.
tell me if somebody's speaking, trying to ask me a question in chat. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today is give you all a brief introduction, or not that brief, an introduction to Unity, to where and how to install it, to what the Unity Hub is, and an introduction to all the different windows and layouts and confusing menus and such that you find inside. That's probably quite daunting on first look. In fact, it's quite daunting on the 20th look, etc., etc., until you get used to it. But with a few kind of pointers and such, you can get used to it fairly quickly. So in the beginning, there was darkness.
I thought there was a big bang.
You
In the
have.
beginning, there was a big bang.
You've been practicing with the new tool.
There's the darkness. Yeah, I've got a new highlighting tool that allows me to do a few tricks, and first time I've used it, so we're just experimenting. So after the darkness, there was Google. And Google begat Unity's webpage. So we stop with the biblical references. So once you got into Google and you've got the unity.com website, I'll go to the download link and you get to download for Windows. Click on that and you'll be taken to the Unity Hub, which is downloading in the bottom left here. Now, you can install Unity on its own, but you also install Unity through the Unity Hub. The important difference is Unity Hub takes a lot of your file and tidiness kind of out of the window. You get a set place that all your projects go to, and you can always refer to them later in Windows Explorer, which if you're left to your own devices, it's quite a common mistake to start saving one project in your documents folder and another one in a totally separate folder. You end up with projects all over the place, and that becomes a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to manage your different projects and the different assets that you'll install along with it. So the Unity Hub can help you not fall into that trap. Once it's downloaded, it's a tiny download. Just open it and allow that to change things in Windows. Accept the terms of service agreement, and that's going to install the hub on my C drive in program files in the Unity Hub folder. Now at this point I'm not going to proceed because I've already got it installed, so you'll have to assume that you all know how to install the program, and you get as far as then running the program afterwards. So if I cancel that now and bring up my current Unity Hub, I'll make it big, and you can see this is the amount of projects I've currently got in my hub. Yours, for the first time, will be absolutely blank. There will be nothing in there to confuse you. And the first thing you'll need to do is go to the installs section here. And from here, you can actually pick a version to install. What I've got here is a list of all the different Unity versions that I've got. Mostly they're 2017, 2018, and I've been playing with 2019 and 20 there. Now, when you actually need to install a new one, you go to Install Editor. It gives you a choice. This is the only quite confusing bit, because for our version that we use, 2018, you'll need to go to Archive, and that will actually take you to the website yet again, onto the right page where we can get to the older releases, and then across the top change to 2018 pick the latest one. And by clicking the Unity Hub button, what we're saying is install it using the Unity Hub. So if we click that, it'll then take us back to this place where it will then change this page, and you'll see that you're actually getting that installed. Once it's installed, then for your first project, you go back to the Projects tab, and we would go to New Project. Now, at this point, I'm going to do a slight pause and give Zulaine some time to fill in on any other things he thinks I might have missed. And no doubt Jay will chime up as well if there's anything to add just on the subjects we've covered so far, so that we're not ploughing ahead without cementing this idea in. So, Zulaine, is there anything I've missed?
Not that I can think of. The things I was going to say are after this, that you'll probably say after this anyway, so, yeah.
Okay, Jay?
All looks good so far, Mr. Mannering.
Okay, well done, Pike. Thank you. So we're going to create a new project by clicking the New Project button. And at this point, the first thing we would do is set the project folder. Now, mine are currently going to my D drive in my data folder and my documents folder within that. Within that one, I've then got Unity projects, and each separate project has its own subfolder. So we're going to leave that set to Unity projects and create a new 3D core project. We'll need to put a name in here. I'm going to call it Fireside Tutorial. And if we leave that Unity project set as it is, when this is created, it will actually create a subfolder called Fireside Tutorial, that all the necessary Unity files and space for your projects and assets to go into within that structure. So we just click Create Project.
No, don't click Create Project.
No, you're right.
You set a Unity 2020.
220. We have to change the install version. So error number 1. Which we'll just wait and repeat that so you can see what I did wrong.
The amount of times I do that myself, you just don't think about it.
Millions of times.
Yeah.
It's a shame there's no cancel button at this point. But it doesn't take that long.
I mean, you can change a project after you've done this, but then that can take some time. It's probably easier just to delete and start again. But, yeah.
And also, if you go backwards project-wise, sometimes you'll break prefabs because Unity's...
I was just going to say that sometimes it's not a good idea to go backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Skip new version, close, and we're back to where we were, except I've got that one there ready to use another time. So new project, and we'll need to give it another name.
Fireside Take 2.
Why not? Fireside Tutorial Take 2 in there, and we change the Unity version up the top here. Pull that down, and we should find the one. There it is, 2018 4364 F1 is the one that we looked at on the website. And we want a 3D template, and we want create. This time we'll load the right version of Unity, and we can move forward.
The only thing I would say there is most of the time, I think it defaults to the 3D template. I don't ever remember pressing it every time I make it.
I think you might be right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is worth bringing up, I guess, because there is other choices. And when we move up to Unity 2020, I believe there's a whole load more choices in the hub with Unity 2020 features that are in the hub.
Okay, now this is opened up in a certain layout because I use this layout, and once you've changed your layout, Unity will use that every time it loads a new instance unless you change it. So what we're going to do is look at what I'm going to explain to you what we're looking at on the screen, what the different boxes, dialogues, areas, windows, etc. all mean, and to give you an idea how you can set this up to look better for you. So the first thing to look at is these three tabs along the top here. We get game, scene, and we get asset store. The two we're going to look at right at the moment are going to be the scene and game windows. So normally you would be on the scene window. What that does is, or what that is like your open document in a word processor. It's the current scene that you're working with, which includes anything backstage that you might have. So it's what your viewer would see if they were looking at your Word document and other such things. The difference between scene window and game window is the game window is what's called the camera view, which in terms of making it simpler is that's what the player sees when they run Unity inside Sinespace. The game window is what actually is going to be viewed from the perspective of running this inside the viewer, inside this fireside chat region, for example. The scene window allows you to not only see what the camera is looking at and what the player is seeing, but also things like you might have hidden behind the scenes. You might bring out a non-playing character, but you might hide them behind a curtain and just reveal the curtain at some point. Well, in this scene window, we can see all of those components, whereas in the game window, you're just going to see what we allow you to see or what you want people to see. So that's the game and the scene window. Moving to this area here, the hierarchy. Hierarchy is what you've got in your scene. It's what's in this area here. And as you can see, we've got a main camera and a direction light. These are put in automatically when Unity creates a new scene. So if we highlight the main camera, you can see here that it's now got some gizmos, X, Y, and Z axis. And the directional light is alongside it here, again with the gizmos, and we can see the light is actually pointing kind of southeasterly direction, which can be changed. But we don't need to right at the moment. So moving down to this bottom area, this is your project area, and what your project is like a storage area where you keep all the things that you might or might not use in your scene. So even if you haven't placed some horses and some ducks in your farmyard, they might be in the project folder under something called farmyard animals. So they're there ready to be used and saved with the project, but so far you may not have put them into your scene. So it's a storage area for all the bits and pieces that you're going to use inside your saved scene. The saved scene is what actually is sent up to Sinespace as the region, room, area, whatever you want to call it, itself. So what you see in the scene is what you'll see in Sinespace. When you play the scene, which we do from these controls in the middle, what that really is like simulate me looking at this in Sinespace and show me what it will look like. That's what the play function is capable of doing. The last area for now to look at is this inspector window here. The lighting and occlusion tabs along here will be relevant later, not today, but for now we just need to look at the inspector. When we highlight something, either in projects or in the hierarchy, the contents of that directional light that we've highlighted will show in the inspector, and what that consists of is a transform component and a light component. In simple terms, the transform, you've pretty much got that on everything, every game object, every character, every building, every light, every camera. They will all have a transform because that's what tracks where it is in the 3D world. The second one is the light, which obviously is the yellow light color coming from the directional light in the southeasterly direction. Anything you want to add to that, Zoo?
No, the only thing I was going to say, but it probably is for later on, is about how to easily align the camera. But yeah, it's probably for later on.
Yeah, I was going to add a cube and then sort of play around with things like that a little bit later on. Jay, anything to add?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, that's good. So, quick idea of how you can change the layout should you want to. All of these windows can actually be dragged and dropped around. So if we grab the hierarchy tab, you can see now it's a moving box, and we could, if we wanted, have the hierarchy over on the left hand side. Just drop it in place and you've then got the game window pushed over to the right. If we then do the same with the inspector window, we could put it down there. But that doesn't make a lot of sense because we've closed up the amount of available space and we'll end up having to scroll down each time to check things. And we've now got way too much area used for this component because it's just not needed. It can be squished up without losing any of that info. But look, we've now got a really messy window. That's kind of annoying. So let's reset it back to the default here. As you can see, that's the window menu, layouts, and then default. And it's just pushed it over to my other screen. 1 second. There we go. Now that's totally different again to that's the default layout that Unity comes with. If you remember back at the beginning, I said this was my custom layout. Well, I'm now going to show you how to quickly put this back into a format that we might want and why we would do that. So the first thing is I keep the hierarchy and the inspector on the right hand side together because you can scroll down and click on your hierarchy and you've immediately still see that alongside the inspector window rather than having to look to the left, look to the right, look to the left and keep losing track. So we're going to grab the hierarchy window and I'm going to push it to here and then one more little push over to the right and then it'll snap into position alongside the inspector there. It's a little bit oversized on the scene, so let's bring that over and we can click the arrow to open up the scene again, showing a main camera, and now we've pretty much got it back to how I had it in the first place. So it's not difficult to get this back into order. If you do play around with it and you do lose control and it becomes a mess and everything is all over the place, etc., you just go to Windows, Layouts, Default, and then just that one adjustment, bringing that over, and I'm back to where I was. So it's really just a case of playing with that if you need to and not getting kind of frightened if you lose your way, but get familiar with what the windows do and why you might want them in places before you mess around with the layout. I do find this is my preferred way, but you can have your own, and there's also the 2x3 4 split tall and wide options, which is Unity's setup, and that gives you 5 different variations there that you can play with, or you can save your own layout and load it later on. Anything else to add on that one, you two?
With the layouts, it might be worth noting that you can add windows to the different areas. So say if you're a scripter and you use the console a lot, then you can add a tab on one of the windows to add a console so that you can always see the console. If you do a lot of animations or stuff like that, you can add animation tabs and stuff like that so that you can always see the animations.
Yeah, I can show you here that the console is already on the tab there, but if I remove it, this is normally the kind of position you would be in, and very often when you open a new project you'd want to go to Windows General and open up the console, and then you can place that where you want. You could drop it over here, but it's common practice to put it alongside in your project area here, and then you toggle between looking at your project and looking at the output from your project.
The only thing I got to add is you can usually a lot of things in Unity you can do two ways, and there is two ways of doing this. Above where Les has the inspector, there's a button that can also change views. It does the same as where Les went in the menus, but it's a button that does the same thing.
You mean the one to the top right?
Yeah, it's saying
not here at the
default.
moment?
It's saying default. You know, it's there. The one that says default.
Yeah, it's layer.
No, above that.
Oh, at the top here. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
but
same
that's
as
the
that
layer
menu
above.
that you were in, but it's
Yeah.
just in a different place.
Yeah, as always with Windows and programs generally, there's 2 or 3 ways to do things.
Yeah.
Kate commented about the animation tab, the same as Jay did. So that would be Window, and then Animation, and then you can bring up the animation window and drag that down. Now, if you get hold of it, you can anyway. There we go, and drop it there, and that's now dragged in as a third tab. And when you've got an animation open, you can see the time frame in this area here, which we'll cover at another time. Anybody got any questions? Okay, so the next part is the editor pack. The editor pack itself is like the Sinespace Handyman's Toolkit on how to get things interactive and moved over to Sinespace in World. So what we would do is go, this is not always the way we'll do this, but for this example we'll go to the asset store. But as many of you already know, we also release pretty much daily editor packs as we update things, so they're always available in the Discord channel. When you get to the asset store, I'm going to just adapt my window a bit to see a bit more of that. You can go to here, the search bar, search for Sinespace. There we are, that one. And then download.
Yeah, I think if you're starting out, you should always go this way for it. Then you know you've got a stable editor pack. Occasionally in our Discord, in the alphas, you'll get an editor pack that's broken, and if you're new at this, you won't understand that so easily. So if you're new, always go to the asset store.
Yeah.
And do it this way.
Once you learn a little bit more about the idiosyncrasies, you can then have one of the overnight releases. But you will need to learn, if you wanted to replace an editor pack in an existing project, you'd actually have to know that there are 3 folders that you need to delete. Otherwise, you won't be able to reinstall it or get your Unity version compiled again. By compiled, I mean you'll not be able to play the scene until the code has been corrected by the right editor pack in place. Okay, that's downloaded. Now just need to import it. Just for reference, if you do need to reinstall the editor pack, the folders that you'll need to delete, there are 2 subfolders inside editor default resources and inside plugins called Sinespace, and then there'll be a space pack or a Sinespace folder, and they need to be deleted as well. Now, obviously at this point, I don't really want to install, do I? Yeah, we are going to.
Yeah.
I don't quite know how long this is going to take. Sometimes it could be 10 or 15 minutes and we run out of time, so I'll get this started.
Yeah.
And then we can talk amongst ourselves while it's doing it. But yeah, for anybody that does in the future want to reinstall the editor pack, by all means get hold of one of us and we'll talk you through it.
Yeah. In fact, I was struggling with that myself because, but you were the one that showed me the actual folders. I think in the past it was a little bit more sketchy as well. You would sometimes do it right and it wouldn't work, but I think it's much better now.
Yeah. Yeah, it does depend what's been happening to the Unity install. And you need to remember that for every asset you drop into place, which we haven't covered adding assets in yet, but we will if we get time. For every one of those that you put into your project, potentially there might be something in there that could knock the whole thing out from working. Typically, that would be if the asset has a script on it and it's a C# script and it doesn't run, so something else doesn't happen, and you reach an error in the console, kind of thing.
And if you are going to update an editor pack, go where Les showed you earlier in the Unity Hub, where your projects are being saved. Go to that folder and copy your project, so you've got a copy of your project before messing with upgrading editor packs, etc.
Yeah, remember anything you potentially could do could destroy your project. Always keep a backup in some fashion. That's a golden rule with everything on computers. As much as 99% of us probably don't do it, we need to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, I do it all the time because I've actually it's hit me a couple of times when I haven't, and it's cost me days and days of work. So I just do it automatically now.
I've been lucky. I've only ever had
Remember that
2
day
projects
that I
come up.
lost all of Ziggy's? Remember that day?
Yeah, yeah. You spent, I think, an entire weekend on the code, and then you lost it or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I lost it and then had to re-script it all in a day.
Fun
That was
times.
so much fun.
Of course, you kept a backup of your project, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we don't. We do it on SVN now, so we've always got the backup.
Yeah. As you can see, the editor pack installer is still trundling away. It's about 10 or 15 minutes. It does seem a little bit laborious. There are ways to avoid that, because once you install it into one project, you could, before you do any work in that project, keep that as your template project. And that way you just duplicate that folder each time, and you then go then you can avoid having to install the editor pack each time and going through this, because it's already been put into that subfolder that's copied.
Yeah, I did that earlier when I was playing around with those post effects, because every time I did something wrong it was destroying the project, so I made a template first to make it easier for me to do that.
Did you get that working?
No, it's something wrong with the whitelisting. It was all working in Unity, but not
It's
in
not in Word.
Sinespace, and then I logged into the SVN and went to the post effects, and it wasn't there on the post stack, so the processors are taking it out. So I've got to work out how the whitelisting works, but I'm sure I'll find that out in the future.
Anybody got any questions? Well, we've got some space.
This is where it always gets stuck. Well, that was quite quick, actually. It went...
That was quick. I was then thinking I should have got stuck on that.
Yeah.
It's
the
normally the
FBXs.
last two. It's not normally the avatars. That
Yeah.
are the ones that take ages. To
It
load.
just flew past one, though. That's what we saw.
It's finished.
Yeah.
No, there's still got more to do.
You
Advert
jinxed it.
time. Don't forget, Elle's got the fashion show tonight. Everybody. 7 p.m. EDT, isn't it?
EST, isn't
Dixie,
it?
is that the right time? Yeah, it's still trundling away, but you can see we've now
See, you
got the
jinxed
science
it, didn't you?
Yeah.
That was my fault because I saw an avatar and it just flipped past
Oh, it
it.
has finished. That is actually quicker than usual.
Yeah, it didn't get stuck. It normally gets stuck on the two avatars, the female and the male, and it usually hangs for about a minute there. It didn't. That was weird.
Thanks, AJ, confirming. Yeah, 7 p.m. EDT for El's show. What region is it in? El, do you want to let us know, or somebody who remembers? If you look at the project now, you can see we've got some extra folders. That's it. Fashionatica. Good name. Okay, they'll be open before the show. Excellent. So our project folder now has got editor default. Let's try and say that again. Editor default resources with the Sinespace folder in. That's the folder you would delete if you were reinstalling. Then we've got a plugins folder, which has got Sinespace in. That again you would delete if you were reinstalling. We've got a Sinespace folder, and we've got a Space Pack folder. The Sinespace folder is what we just downloaded from the asset store, and it contains the compressed editor pack file. And then the Space Pack folder is what you get when the editor pack is installed. So that is the final one. Those two would be the ones you also delete if you needed to install. So the Space Pack folder is where everything is pretty much gone that's important to us. We won't go through the contents. That's way too much to talk about right now. But importantly, this editor pack gives us the extra functionality of being able to add the Sinespace components to the Unity components, and the combination of those is that it creates an exe program file that can be run inside the viewer, in simple terms. The other thing is that we've got the menus across the top we haven't really looked at. We'll do that now that we've got the Sinespace menu in here. So the next thing that you do for the editor pack is you must install the editor pack settings. That's very quick, but we'll just do that.
Now that's weird. You see, that's instant on my computer. Just click it and it's instant. And
There we go. That's done. And lastly, to actually create anything, you need to sign in with your user ID. We'll do that over here. Not a long password, is it? And we're logged in, so that's confirmed. Here you are now signed in and can upload content. So that leaves us pretty much to the last part of what we're going to cover today,
you're
which
going
is
to go over this brand bit as well. Because once you're signed in, if you fill in this, it automatically fills it all in later on when you're doing other stuff.
Good point. We'll do that before we move on to the menu. These are just pre-filled areas that you can enter your brand, your icon, copyright label, etc. So that each time you create a new virtual good or region, that information doesn't need to be put in on the prop. It will pick that up from here. So to do that, is the brand icon. I haven't got in here, but that's just a graphic of about 512 by 256 is the size I need. The copyright label you would add in here, it would be Lineway Entertainment, and we could use a default inventory icon, but normally for a product in the shop you'd create your own picture, so you'd use that instead. But if you wanted to, you could have a default icon set in here. That's all you need to do. It just saves a bit of time when you create a lot of tools. Anything you want to add to?
Yeah, it automatically pulls your staging avatar as well. So if you've got an avatar on staging, but if you tick that box, it would put a default avatar in there, which sometimes can be quicker because obviously it's not having to. Actually, I think it actually has to load it either way, even if it's a default one. But
I think it does load it either way, so
yeah.
There's not a lot to pick and choose between it.
Yeah. But
I mean, if you've got an outfit, if on your preview avatar you've got a heavy outfit with lots of things on, it might take longer, but that's about the only thing that would affect it. But yeah, you tick there if you want to use your preview avatar, or leave it blank, and that will be the default one in the editor pack. Anything else?
No.
Jay?
The only thing I'd probably jumping ahead here, so with regard to the projects folder, might be worth going over a couple of things that you can do that will either break it or when you try to upload something, it won't work properly. So if
You
you
mean
try
good
and
practice?
create an asset, if it's good, yeah, good practice things. So when you create objects, don't put them in the Sinespace folder, space pack.
No. In fact,
Upload
create
them.
your own separate folder. You can do that by right-clicking on the area here, go into create, and then folder, and type in my stuff or anything more aesthetic that you want to use.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
don't put
pretty
them
much
in the Sinespace or the space pack folders because when it goes through processing, the processing server will just strip them out.
And
yes.
also, when you
And
make,
also,
I
if
got
you're going to edit, if you need to reinstall the editor pack and you saved some of your stuff in the Sinespace or the Space Pack folder, it's going to get deleted when you install the editor pack. So always good practice. One of the first things to do, create a new folder, put your stuff in there. You can't always avoid when you bring something in from the asset store, you can't always avoid having to use the folders that they set in the package. We'll cover probably good housekeeping on that another time, but you can actually move the structure inside your subfolder here for that as well, but it's not always advisable. But that's getting way beyond. We haven't even looked at bringing anything in from the asset store yet.
Yeah,
We'll
the
cover
other
some-
the other thing that I was going to mention, Paul, sorry, Les, is standard assets. Generally speaking, when you install standard assets, if you install the complete package, that generally breaks
Yeah.
the editor pack.
yeah, it
So,
does. And another thing I wanted to say about the folder is when you're naming your folder, if you put an underscore or a full stop at the beginning of the name, that folder will always be at the top of the assets folders.
That's also applicable in Windows generally. You can
Yeah.
use that technique to keep any folder at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, just popping back up to the menu. Too much on here to go through everything, but just to give you a differential and some sort of perspective on what they will mean. Your file menu traditionally means open, start a new file, close and save and such. This is no different, but we've got the addition of we can create a new scene or open a scene, or we can create a new project or open a project. Because you would be using the Unity Hub, it's probably not a good idea to actually do it from within Unity when creating a new project. Best to exit this instance of Unity, then bring your hub back up and then go through new project this way, so it's always in the index of the hub.
Also, after you install the editor pack, you get that one extra option of the Sinespace scene, which creates a default
We're on
Sinespace
edit. We
scene.
haven't got there yet, Mr. Jump Ahead. So edit, normal stuff, cut, copy, paste, etc. A lot of stuff there relevant to your project settings, preferences, etc. You will not normally alter those because the editor pack sets those specifically to be the correct settings to send up in world. The assets, again, we haven't covered assets store and assets generally. The assets refers to any 3D model, any media file, an MP3 file, it could be a video file, an AVI or an MP4. It can be a script, it can be a text file, it can be basically anything, any one of the components that make up a 3D object, then that's basically what this menu applies to. So we can import a new asset, import a package. A package is really just a fancy zip file that has all the assets, or more than one asset, bundled into it. Export package, you can select various items in your project window and then export them into a folder, into a zip file if you like. They can be sent to somebody else. When they install that, then it will install the same file structure that you had in the original object. Other things here get a little bit more complicated. Apart from the very bottom one on the assets menu is upload to Sinespace. That would be when you've created something, when you've already got something in the scene, tested it, put all the Sinespace bits and bobs on that you want and got it working. At that point, you would then move it. In fact, you wouldn't. You make a copy of it from the hierarchy into your folder in the project. And that then makes a prefab of your prop, and everything has to be a prefab to be sent up as a furniture item to get it into Sinespace. And so you either would go to assets and upload, or if we had anything in here, let's just quickly let's do a quick game object, 3D object, and cube. There's our cube. It's appeared in the hierarchy, and if I drag it here, it then makes it a prefab, and we get the option upload to Sinespace if I right click on it. And that's the other way that you could send it. But we will cover the creation of cubes and fancy things and make them animate and do different things another time, possibly next week. But moving on the menu here to game object. Game object is specifically something you want to create and then add into your scene. It can be many different things, and a game object, as well as a cube or a square or a circle or a light, an audio file or video, etc. It can also be one of the assets you've installed, made, or created here with the cube. So that's a game object. Component is the bits and pieces that get added onto the objects that appear in the inspector. So these are all components. That might be a Unity component, or it might be a Sinespace component. The Sinespace menu itself is the one that you might spend most of your time with. It's got a lot of options in here. It's going to be a quick gloss over because far too much to go into right now. About Editor Pack briefly gives you some key points to start with. Quick start, tutorials, notice and release notes. Notice and release notes will give you information on which version of the Editor Pack you've got. It's here. Go back to the quick start. You can create a region. There's some documentation and various assets that were installed in the Editor Pack to do with vehicles, clothing and avatars, and games and activities that you can browse through. Close that. The next bit on the menu is quick start, which is the buttons that we saw in the about window. Virtual goods, some quick ways of making virtual goods. You can highlight, let's say with this cube is something we think is brilliant and everybody's going to want one, and we want to send that up in world. We can highlight it here and then go to Sinespace, virtual goods, and turn selection into furniture, or if it was clothing we could turn it into clothing. When we do that, turn it into furniture, what it actually does is adds the necessary components to make it a complete virtual good. The room furniture component is needed, and the virtual good script.
And that's
We've
actually, in this
the-
case, put it into a parent as well.
It's put it into a parent, yeah. And so the cube itself is there. It made an empty game object. It called it cube. It then moved my cube into its new cube and added the room furniture and the virtual good all in the one quick Sinespace menu option, virtual goods, turn selection into furniture. So that can save a lot of work once you get familiar with using that. Won't go through these virtual good scripts. We've done that in previous tutorials, and it's not really in the remit of this when we're just sending a cube up. We'll include that when we make a prop that's worthwhile. Moving along the menu a little bit more, Sinespace. Other things in here are obviously more relevant, but they're more detailed. We've got many advanced things here which we cannot cover in this tutorial, and the remainder on here we will get to as we progress again in a later one. Cinemachine, a standard Unity menu. It's very good, very complex, but great fun to play with. But that's a way with scripting to control cameras. For normal stuff created like furniture and clothing, you don't need to get involved in that at all at this stage. But there are plenty of tutorial videos on YouTube should you need it. Jobs, pretty much ignore that. You don't really need to get involved in that, nor the UGI at this stage. And then the final Windows menu just allows you to get to most of these other ones. If you accidentally close them, you can bring up the general menu and you can get your scene back or your game back or your project window, etc. Just in case you're a bit silly and you decide to do stuff like closing everything and think, how do I get my screen back to what it should look like? You can come down here and Windows General, we can find our, what do we close? Our inspector window. There it is. We can put it back in place wherever we want to over this side somewhere. But we don't need that right now. We can reset layouts to the default. And then for my particular layout, I'm just going to drag that over and put it back over that side. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Nope.
Wakey wakey zoo, wakey wakey jay.
I said no. Didn't say it loud enough.
Yeah, I didn't hear you. Okay. I think that pretty much covers things. I mean, apart from the obvious, like if you've got something in here you want to keep, file menu, save scene or save as, whichever, give it a name. I tend to also, under my...
I did think of something actually, Les.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you were talking about the fact that if you accidentally lose your windows, etc., you can actually save the layout so that you can call back the exact layout that you've had before.
Yeah. I'm showing you the long-winded way if you forget to save it. There are ways of getting it back quite simply. But yeah, the other thing we could have done is layouts and save layout. It's a very small box, but we could put in there Les's layout, and it probably won't like the apostrophe, but never mind, we'll try it. Yes, it has. We'll close a few windows and make it look horrible. Oops. And window layouts more, and then load from disk. Remember where you saved it, because I didn't seem to get an option, so I don't know where it's put it.
Oh, I think it might have just put it as a option in the actual layouts menu. So there should be a Les one there now.
Oh yeah,
there
it's
you go.
added up here. Look, there you go. So if we pick that, there we go. It's got it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to save the file, once again, just save as. I normally, if you haven't got a scenes folder, then create one where you created your My Stuff, or save your stuff into My Stuff, and make sure you know where you saved the scene. So tutorial scene, which is spelled terribly. Tutorial scene. Save. And I don't think you always need to, but I have a habit of just confirming everything's saved by clicking Save Project as well. You shouldn't go in and change it, but if you did for any reason, then you'd need to save your project at the top. And then we're done. So I think that concludes. Just to quickly recap, what we've shown you today is how to go to the unity.com website, how to get the Unity Hub downloaded and installed, and how to install your first Unity project and get that up and running, to then add in the editor pack from Sinespace, and to quickly look through what the layout of the Unity environment actually looks like and what the windows are used for. So we hope you found that quite useful. Has anybody got any questions? Take care, Kay. Thanks for that, site.
Well, I actually came along as a visitor, site arm, but as per normal, that Les pulls me in when he can, you know.
Take care, AJ. Zoo, have you turned the stream off?
Not yet, no. Can I turn it off
I
now?
think you can do that now.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks for that.
I'll stop the stream and the recording.